Hello everybody and welcome to our Running Logic audio series where we're going to try and break down some of the intricacies of running technique and make them as simple as possible for everybody to understand and learn. If you don't have time to listen, don't worry, we're going to accompany this with our usual written blogs which you can find on the website. Now I want to talk a little bit about training for marathons. It's the mecca of running in a lot of ways. It's what everybody wants to do. A lot of people have on their bucket list to get through that marathon, and then some of them get the bug and want to do more. But here's just a few basic things that you want to take into account when you've made that commitment, and congratulations if you have. And the first one I would say is be honest with yourself and be honest with your coach if you have one. Specifically, be honest with how many sessions you can train a week, and I mean running sessions. Ideally, we'd love to program 4 separate running sessions, and that would be broken down into a strength-based run, so a hill, intervals and fartlegs to work on central nervous system stimulation, get you running faster. And a recovery run or something in between the two. So you've got a strength, a speed, a long, and a recovery. That would be ideal. 2 sessions a week, even for if you train for 6 months, unless you're a bit of an athlete or you're doing another sport or activity that sets you in good stead. It's really not enough. And 3 is probably the most common. Especially if you're doing London Marathon, you sort of have a break over Christmas time and you come up after. But just be honest with your coach on how often you can train, because they will know and they'll see it in your times. Speaking of time, minutes, not miles. Try not to think of your training in terms of how many miles you run each time and building up and building up and building up. It's much easier to think of it in terms of how much stress your body can handle, how many minutes can those joints handle. So therefore, when we're building you up, if you've never done it before and you haven't run long distance, you might have a walk run where it's 30 minutes running, 30 minutes walking, but it's a 3-hour session. Obviously, because you're not running the whole time, you're not going to cover loads and loads of distance, but it's still 3 hours of loading those muscles, loading those tendons. That's time on your feet. So minutes, not miles. Where are your weaknesses? If you're a good runner or a more experienced runner, whether you're amateur or recreational or professional, you want to look at your weaknesses and then base your training and your program around that. If you're not as strong as you should be, you tend to break down or get injuries. Maybe we want to look at adding some strength sessions, whether that be strength through hills or actually adding physical fitness and weights or resistance into your program. It's really important. If you're strong, but you start to fatigue when you are running long distances, then we might want to look at that longer session and how much time pressure we're putting you under, how much load we're getting through those joints. Are you fatiguing? So collaborate. I really recommend getting a coach, going through our running programs, because whether you've got 3 months to train or 6 months to train, they're going to take all these factors into account. The last thing is more practical. Routines, nutrition, don't try anything on the day. If you are taking on gels, how much fluid you're taking on, you've got little snack packs or snack bars, make sure on that usually weekend run where you're doing longer time, that you practice eating at whatever time you think you're going to eat. You practice taking those gels. You don't change brand of gel, even the different sugar contents, the different flavors, they can set off your stomach. The last thing you want is to be running to the toilet. Speaking of the toilet, make sure you know your race, where you're going to take your toilet breaks if you need to, where the loos are, where the water stations are. The more you plan, the more successful you're going to be. But that's it. It's quite simple. Once you get into the routine of your 3 to 4 runs and your recovery, and you can plan it around your busy life, you'll find you'll do really well. Whereas if you wing marathon training and you just do a 5 or 10k during the week and a long run on the weekend, you're at more risk of breaking down and not doing so well. So there we have it. We've covered a few things there. Be honest with yourself, be honest with your coach about where you're weak, where you're strong, how often you can train. Try and think in minutes, not miles, because you'll never be up on that last preparation run. You'll never be running quite as far as you think you will. So take into account just the time under tension, and don't change or try any new routines on the day. Make sure you're well practiced before you go to that race.